Okay, welcome everybody to our fourth Downtown Clean and Safe Business Safety Education Seminar. We were hoping for a little bit bigger crowd, but obviously the day after a long weekend, we did anticipate it being a little bit lower. The nice thing is these are broadcasted live on the Chamber of Commerce social media as well as the Downtown BRZ, and then will be posted on the Lethbridge.ca/downtown website so that anyone who's not here or can view it, as well as you can view it again if there's anything important that you would like to take a look back on. I'm going to ask Dawn to change my slide. Thanks to Streetside Eatery for the lunch. There's lots there, so please help yourself. Feel free to get up at any point and go and help yourself to more. So we're going to do a little bit of who to call. It's pretty quick, but then our main piece is event reporting and investigation 101, provided by Melissa Craig from our integrated risk management team at the City of Lethbridge. And then we'll be joined by Barbara from the Lethbridge Public Library, who will be talking about record keeping, evaluation, and accountability, specifically as to what the Lethbridge Library does. Then we have Constable Barent, Goodrich from the LPS to talk about online LPS reporting and the alternative response management, and then we'll have some time if there's any questions. So the Downtown Clean and Safe strategy is a city-led strategy that was developed in late 2018 and early 2019 around addressing the real or perceived notion that downtown and area was unsafe. And so what we did is the City of Lethbridge and its partners put together 12 programs to try and address the issues. One program was this business education seminar and a toolkit for businesses to come out of it. It's being developed by a subcommittee of City, LPS, the BRZ, and the Chamber, and it's designed after a 2001 program done by the BRZ and the Police Service. There'll be the seminars as well as an educational print or online document toolkit that businesses will be able to access going forward. So today's seminar is all about you've witnessed an accident or an incident, and now what? So have you or your business, your staff been seen something or exposed to something like a robbery or a theft, loitering, erratic behavior, or threats? So now what do you do once the issue's been dealt with? It's all about proper record keeping and ensuring that the incident's reported for future use. Again, all our education seminars are posted online, so this one will be posted within about a week, and you can access the ones that we've done in the past as well. So who to call? So there's a sheet, a card on the tables there with the numbers, and I encourage you to take that and post it somewhere within your office or your business where you can see it. But some of the main numbers that people may not be aware of to call, it's not always a call directly to the police. Diversion outreach team is great if you're dealing with loitering, if there's someone around your business who seems to be in stress. The diversion outreach team will come, they'll connect, they'll outreach with the person, and potentially if they're open to it, they will relocate them to somewhere that is more appropriate for the needs of that individual. We have the police complaint line, so if it's a pretty generic complaint, something that is recurring, please call that number. The downtown policing unit is also available for more immediate calls, and this is something that might go to 911. You can call downtown policing unit. Again, 911 is always, in case of emergency, the default number. In terms of thefts, and we'll talk a little bit about the online reporting, but there's a complaint line and lethbridgepolice.ca. Graffiti removal, the Downtown BRZ's Clean Sweep program is available for graffiti removal. Their number is there. And then we do have a contracted needle debris cleanup through Arches, and the number is provided. So there's a number of different people to reach out to depending on the circumstance, and this will help us mitigate unnecessary calls going to people that don't necessarily need to deal with them. Example would be a needle pickup going to 911. That's not a best use of our resources. So I'm going to call up Melissa Craig from the city's Integrated Risk Management Department to talk about event reporting and investigation.
Perfect. Okay. So Andrew asked me to come and talk with everyone here today. Just to give context of where I sort of fit inside of the city, I am the risk manager with the City of Lethbridge inside of our integrated risk management group. And inside of our work is our health and safety program, fleet safety, risk management, as well as it relates to any claims or incidents with the city. Yes, thank you, I'm going to forget that, so please keep reminding me. Okay, so basically, why would we report and why would we investigate? So really, sometimes we need to do this because we've got some legislative compliance or legislative obligations on us. So some of those that touch into the employer's world or looks at occupational health and safety, as well as the Workers' Compensation Act, the Traffic Safety Act. So if staff or you're involved in any sort of motor vehicle event, and then as well as you may have insurance obligations both on your auto, property, anything like that. So you always want to make sure that we're reporting and investigating. Okay. We also want to report and investigate so that we can, and this is often the biggest reason, because we want to be able to prevent a reoccurrence. So I'll stay there. We also want to make sure that we're sharing experiences with each other so that, you know, you can learn from others without having to kind of go through that same event or that same learning experience. As well, it supports us in information gathering, which we can then use to make better decisions from. And then also maintains awareness. So if we create a culture where we know that we should report and investigate when things happen, it also helps to keep our eyes open looking for things, you know, or also if something doesn't feel right or you're wondering about something, to make sure that we're reporting it and bringing it forward, because it could be information, it could be important to others. Yeah. So this is just a slide that kind of has a few of the more textbook versions of what an incident or an event is, but it's kind of like when anything happens or occurs that could have resulted in injury, illness, or damage to either your facilities, city facilities, and it also, we really want to look at an unplanned event that interrupts the completion of an activity, and it doesn't always have to result in injury or damage, because some of the most important things that we can report and investigate are where we have near misses or what we would call safety concerns, because that's then when we're learning before we've had any loss or damage or harm. So this is just a bit of a slide that highlights what are the types of events, at least at the City of Lethbridge, that we request and ask that all staff across all of our different business units report. So obviously if we have any injuries or illnesses, and this includes not only to city staff, but also if we've got injuries or illnesses to the public or third parties or people coming into, say, a building like Casa, and something occurs. We also want to make sure that we're reporting any motor vehicle collisions. So again, from a business lens, you'd want to make sure that if you own the vehicle, you'd want to make sure that you're notified and know about any events or incidents. But then also if your staff are driving their own vehicles, from the WCB or the Workers' Compensation lens, you'd want to, sometimes that piece can apply, so you want to make sure that you know about those events happening as well. Safety concerns and near misses I briefly spoke about before, but these are really critical and important types of events that we really want to make sure inside of our businesses that we're really fostering and making sure that our staff share those, and that it's you know, an encouraged and safe place to want to share those types of events. Property damage, so again, this could be damage to your business property or damage to city property, and then violence and harassment events. And so with some changes to the Occupational Health and Safety Act and Workers' Compensation, reporting and investigating of those is even now more of an obligation on all of us as employers. So it's really important that we report and investigate those as well. Okay. So how are events reported? This slide's really trying to show that it kind of is a two-flow piece. So obviously if you have something happening and it's in progress and it's occurring, and there's still a risk of harm or something happening to someone, then that's when you want to make sure that you're verbally communicating, connecting with maybe one of those phone numbers that Andrew had up before. As well, even after an event occurs, or maybe there's a near miss or a safety concern, you want to make sure that staff know to be verbally reporting that to their supervisor, manager, business owner, and then following that sort of verbal reporting and the initial kind of making it safe and making it secure is the followed up written documentation. Okay. So this slide's just really looking at the purpose of a written report, and that timely incident reports, they're really going to help us all, so help all companies, all employers, to respond quickly to issues, resolve conflicts, and then one of the biggest pieces to take preventative measures to reduce whatever current or ongoing risk we still have related to that. So incident reports also are a tool to trigger an investigation. So it's really a good way to make sure that as we're creating systems and processes inside of our businesses, that if we've got a formal reporting sort of system, it helps to initiate or put it up to front of the mind that we need to actually look into and investigate what occurred with that. It also provides documentation for follow-up, so some of that follow-up could be that someone more senior in the company wants additional information, maybe police want additional information. Andrew might be able to use it for some of the work that he does, but it's a place to capture and store that information. Then it's also used to identify areas of risk. So you might find that you're having a trend or something showing up more often than not. So you're going to want to make sure that we're able to, like the actual documentation and reporting, depending on how you guys do it, you might be able to pull statistics from it and those types of things. Sometimes, depending on your systems, that can be automated. Sometimes it needs to be manual. And then it shows that the company documented the incident within required timelines. So if we just think back to that first slide that we had, where we've got some legislative responsibilities on us, the actual documentation of incident reporting helps to, down the road, if any of those external regulatory agencies have questions, we've got that information there. Okay, go ahead, Andrew. So if you're looking to sort of document down any incident or event, this slide's really just kind of highlighting you can go online. There's many different templates. You can connect with Andrew. We are more than willing to share what ours is, but essentially this is the information that you want to capture. You really want to make sure we're capturing what happened, when did it happen, where did it happen, how, who it happened to, who reported it, and everyone that was involved. So it could include witnesses to the event, other people involved, but essentially this is just a really good high-level overview of the information that you'd want to make sure that you're capturing. Okay. Then we just shift into, so after we've reported that something's occurred and everything's been made safe and everyone's okay and things are secure, then we would start to look into investigating what occurred and what happened. And the reasons to investigate a workplace-related event, of course, we want to determine the cause or the causes. So often it's more than one for the event or incident, to prevent similar events and incidents from happening in the future. I've really spoken to most of these, right? Fulfill our legal requirements. Also can help us to determine the cost of an incident when we investigate, because we actually start to get a bigger picture of some of the snowballing or rollover impacts of an event. So on the surface, we might think it's one cost, but then when we start to do an investigation, we can start to see some of the bigger pieces that are related to cost. We also want to make sure we're compliant with regulations, and where we've got events or incidents where staff are injured or hurt, or workers are injured or hurt, then we need to make sure that we're investigating the causes, because that's going to be an expectation that both Occupational Health and Safety has on us, as well as the Workers' Compensation Board. Okay. So I just have this slide in here because if we're going to look at doing investigations, it's really critically important, especially from an employer lens, that we have a little bit of a pause here, because often how we react will determine what we learn and how deep we explore. So really, this is just speaking to that our sort of, we're all humans, we all have an initial reaction to when something happens or when an event occurs. And more often than not, if we're reacting to the event and not sort of pausing and looking to try to go a little bit deeper down to figure out what happened, what was going on before the event, we will miss many really important opportunities to really learn and grow and share, really share information that can help to prevent things from happening in the future, as well as to help us work together and help each other. So I've just got here the next slide. Go ahead, Andrea. It's just, these are some really common reactions to what in the risk world we'd call like a failure event. So something didn't go right, something's gone wrong, we've noticed something. And retrospective, so it's kind of one of the, and I'm not saying any of these are necessarily bad or good. What I'm really saying here is that when you're inside of looking into an incident or an event, really kind of just check yourself if you're focusing too much on any one of these lenses, and then just say, okay, but is there anything else that I need to learn? Is there anywhere else that I should go? Have I missed any other pieces of information? Because the retrospective one is really talking about looking back on a sequence of events. So it's very common in risk management to kind of go backwards and say, okay, well, this is where we know we ended up. This is our incident. What happened leading up to it? It's a really great tool to use. Just one of its pitfalls or its pitfalls is that it creates an assumption that everything happens in a linear fashion, like one after the other. And I know you guys run businesses, and I'm sure you probably know that there's multiple things coming in that affect and impact why or how something happens. So we just want to make sure that we haven't just taken the most linear route to getting there. And then the other ones here are really just looking at some other pieces to make sure that the counterfactual and the judgmental often aren't very productive if we want to hear the whole story from people as to what occurred or happened. So just really important when you're inside your own workplaces and doing sort of reviewing or looking at things with staff, that we're making sure that we're just asking what happened without kind of any lens of judgment or anything like that, because it will really halt and stop people from giving you the whole story as to what occurred. And then we might really miss one really important piece of information that could be really, really useful down the road to prevent things from happening again. And then the last one, proximal, is really where it's a little bit of a thinking trap that we can fall into, where we're only focusing on sort of the sharp end or the point of incident, and not looking back enough at what were all the systems or the things or the other influences that were occurring prior to. So, and so this slide here is really just summarizing everything I just talked about. So seldom ever is there only one single cause. So this is just a really brief example. We have an investigation concludes that an incident was due to a worker's carelessness and goes no further, leaving several unimportant questions unanswered. So we'd want to look at not just sort of stopping at worker carelessness. We'd want to understand, was the worker distracted? If yes, why was the worker distracted? Was a safe work practice being followed? If not, why? Might want to ask, do we have a safe work practice for this? Maybe we've never encountered this before. Were safety devices in order? Again, if not, why? And then for worker training, we want to look at and make sure, do workers have the training that they need? Again, if not, why? It might be because we've never encountered that before, or it's a new risk, a new emerging risk that's come forward. Okay. So really, kind of like with the other slide that was summarizing what you should have inside of an incident report, when you're doing an incident investigation and you kind of finish your investigation, really important that you've collected and looked at do we have all of the information? Have we uncovered everything related to sort of the situational facts of the event? So what was going on, like that sort of who, what, when, where, why, factual pieces. Then the systemic vulnerabilities, which is a requirement to look inward as employers to say, what are we doing? Are we helping, hurting? Do we have some things in place that are making it confusing for staff, or they're not understanding what they should be doing? And then the last one is the personal performance shaping factors, and that's really looking at for the individuals and the people involved, what sort of things what's going on for them on a more personal level? Are there any pieces that we should be sort of coaching, helping people with relation to that? Okay. This is really just simple steps for investigation. So obviously you want to contact emergency services first, if you require them. Then report the event to a designated person within your organization. Make the area safe, provide first aid to any injured persons. Then your next step is really looking at kind of what your investigative team would do. So depending on the size of the employer, you might have specialized people that do this portion, or this might fall to you as the business owner. So you really want to make sure that you've got witness management. So if there's people who witnessed what happened, that you, at minimum, collecting their sort of names, phone numbers, ways to get in touch with them later. Ideally, if you can kind of keep them there and get the information, that's the best. Investigate the incident, collect the information. Then you'd want to take it back and analyze all of that information that you collected, look for trends, try to look for the root cause, go back to that slide we had before where we're looking at kind of all three of those factors, the facts, the situational facts, the systemic vulnerabilities inside of our processes and how we operate, and then the personal performance shaping factors, and then report the findings and the recommendations. So that's kind of where you'd end up with like a completed investigation report. And then from that, you'd move on to step 3, where you'd want to develop a plan for corrective action. So given everything we've learned, everything that we've looked at, what are we actually going to do about this to prevent it from happening again, or reduce any current risk that we still have? Then you'd want to implement the plan, evaluate its effectiveness. So often you do one thing which creates something else, so we want to make sure we're kind of following that plan, do, check, act process, always checking in, and then make changes for continued improvement. And I've just got a slide here that the follow-up actions could include. So once have finished the report, looked at our corrective actions, some of the follow-up things that we'd want to make sure we're doing is respond to the recommendations in the report by explaining what we can do and what we can't do. So often you'll have an investigation. There might be lots of different suggestions of what we could do to prevent it from happening again, but maybe due to time resources, money resources, just often those are two big barriers that you'd want to document down why you're choosing to take which actions, and maybe why you're choosing not to do some others. So that's really important and key stuff to make sure that we don't overlook documenting down. You'd want to develop a timetable for corrective actions, and it's not in the slide, but you probably also want to assign who's going to do those things. Then just monitor that they've been done. Check the condition of any injured workers. So if you had an event where you have injured workers, maybe they're off work, you'd want to make sure you're staying in touch with them, checking up with them. You want to educate and train any other workers that are at risk. And then if people are returning to work from an injury, you want to reorientate them to the work site, let them know what's changed, what's occurred, depending on the event. Okay? And that, oh, sorry, this is not my slide. Thank you, I'm done. It's hard to see.
So we're just going to jump one presenter because Barbara hasn't made it from her last meeting yet. So we're going to jump to Constable Goodrich to talk about the online LPS reporting and alternative response management.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for coming, everybody. I know it was kind of a gloomy day out there, but thanks for coming. We've got some interesting information that we're going to talk about. Two topics I'm going to talk about are online reporting, which is readily available on our Lethbridge Police website. Anyone can look at it anytime. But in conjunction with that, I also wanted to touch on our alternative response management, which is basically one step above our online reporting. Andrew, would you be able to just click the link? Yeah. Awesome. So, excuse me. The reason I wanted to bring this up is it kind of goes on a step-by-step, here's what to do, this is what you got, this is the problems that you have, and here's what to do, right? So basically, like it says, please ensure that the incident actually happened within our city. Excuse me. What happens sometimes is we get people that will be visiting from a different neighborhood or a different rural community, and they're driving through and they come and talk to us about that, or they want to report it online. We actually do not take those incidents. They need to deal with that within their own area. No known suspects or evidence. Someone broke in, but not into your house or garage or business. The value of the incident was less than $5,000. Doesn't involve weapons, firearms. It's not a hate crime. Doesn't involve visa immigration documents. Our numbers are outlined there as well. Just scroll down a little bit, Andrew, is it possible? So here's the important part, is our online system, you can report those incidents. So these incidents here, lost property under $5,000, theft under $5,000, damage, mischief to property, theft from vehicle, damage to mischief to vehicle, and information. So that's a broad gamut of things that happen to people on an everyday basis in our city that are on the lower end of crime, but they still do happen quite regularly, and that's why we want to have a fluid way to report those to us so we can get that documented in a timely fashion. I think that was it regarding that. Just that all of these files are reviewed, and if, let's say, one of your files is, let's say, the theft under $5,000, but it ties into something a little bit higher, then an officer will be involved and will investigate with that. I think that's good on that one. So kind of to tie into that, I wanted to talk about our alternative response management. It's a bit of a newer project that we've had for a couple of years now. And that it's staffed by an actual officer. And so when we do the alternative response management, basically what happens, the same process occurs. You call into our dispatch, and the dispatch personnel will determine if the call meets the submission criteria. Some of those are fraud under $5,000 with no suspects, or multiple credit or tap card fraud. So that would be a situation where you have a fraud occur at your business and you have closed circuit TV video stills of our suspect, but you don't know who it is. You can forward that to us, and maybe we can send it out to our membership and try and identify that person for you. That goes with theft under $5,000, mischief under $5,000, lost or found property, supplemental reports for other members or updates to members' files. So also if another member is calling, they can go through the ARM officer, and then they'll kind of expedite that process and put a supplemental file on that investigating officer's file. We also have our harassing communications, but nothing that is domestic in nature, I guess I wanted to say as well as theft under $5,000 from a motor vehicle with suspects, so you do know who broke into your vehicle and took something. Theft of a motor vehicle with no suspects, mischief to a motor vehicle, so your window gets broken with suspects. So if you know who broke your window yet again, that'll go to our ARM unit. Lost or stolen license plates, gasoline thefts, we don't have so many of those now with the new legislation. All shoplifting offenses will go to the ARM unit. Break and enter to a shed, but not a commercial business. That is a fenced area. All counterfeit money, either if it is possessing or if it's passing, if you believe that, even if it's just the person doesn't seem suspecting or anything like that, you could definitely give us a shout with that too. Past disturbances, things that have happened in the past with time delay, no injuries, no weapons, and not domestic related. Driving complaints that you do not feel are of an impaired nature, either by drugs or alcohol. Complaints of road rage, is our last one that fits our criteria. I wanted to touch on something as well with shoplifting. How many of you have shops with products in it? Okay, so uncooperative and fleeing people in a crime that is in progress will be dispatched immediately. That won't be sitting. If you're dealing with someone, it's not going to go to our arm unit and sit there for an hour or so. If you're fighting with somebody, it'll get dispatched appropriately to a patrol officer, regardless if it normally would go to the arm unit. I wanted to touch on our time delay with it. If you do call our arm, if it does get transferred to arm, you'll be contacted within 24 hours of the time that the incident happens. So sometimes it does take a little bit of time to deal with your matter, but we will reach out to you. And when that arm officer does talk to you, they're going to advise you that the information has been collected and the matter is either concluded, and you will get a case number with it for insurance purposes or anything like that. This is another one that's happening a lot that we're seeing is tap frauds. So basically a credit card has been stolen and it's been tapped at your business, and now a fraud has taken place. So what happens is that we tell our people who have had this happen to them that contact their financial institution and let us know if they've been refunded the money. Now, if you've been a victim of this and you've been refunded your money, then now the victim turns to the institution itself. And once they reach out to us, if they want to go forward with that, we will deal with that. But if it does not go that way, then our investigation will be concluded. Yet again, if there are further leads or further tools or tips that are happening with the tap fraud, then of course we're going to investigate those as well. Driving infractions, I wanted to touch on that a little bit. One of the big things is we get people calling in and they say so-and-so is driving not so great on Whoop Up Drive. You're going to get asked questions from our dispatch, and they're going to be, would you like charges laid? Are you willing to provide a statement? And are you willing to attend court? Now, those are all very important, I guess, categories that we need to touch on, because without the cooperation of our complainant, they aren't going to go forward in court, because you, in fact, are the person who is a witness to that. And I want to touch on that because that is something that a lot of people don't understand. They call us, well, he's driving, you need to deal with him. Unfortunately, there is a little bit of onus that comes back on the person who is calling in that complaint. I believe that was everything that's kind of pertaining to our downtown population that we're talking about for our ARM or online reporting. And if there's, are we doing questions later or? Yeah, questions later, okay. So if anyone has any questions that they want to talk about with this, with online reporting or alternative response management, please come see me. I'll be here for the rest of the afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now I'll call up Barbara from the Lethbridge Public Library to talk a little bit about recording, evaluation, and accountability. Some firsthand experience from a location in our downtown that has had to become very good at response reporting.
Hi friends, my name is Barb Longair. I'm with the Lethbridge Public Library, and I work primarily at the main branch. And as you know, it's in downtown, and we've experienced all the opioid crisis and all different kinds of behaviors in the library. And what we do is we use this form to keep track of this thing. And it's funny, Andrew was like, hey, can you come talk about accountability in forms? And I'm like, oh boy. I have to sing now? Besides the fact that you know, librarians are kind of predisposed to creating things and keeping records of things, this actually, the incident report is really helpful for us. The report that we use is taken from the city. They have this big form with lots of checkbox and everything. But basically, what you need is who is involved in whatever happened, what happened, and then on our form, what's nice is there's this investigation piece. So, you know, if I'm in the library and I don't work in the evening, and Monday evening something happens, well, our staff know to write up this incident report and document it. So when I come in on Tuesday morning, I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing happened. You know, a patron slipped on the stairs and they injured themselves. So then I can follow up, well, was there any kind of like a carpet tile that was up and, you know, caused a tripping hazard? Or are you okay? Are they okay? So that investigation is really nice. And then the other piece beyond this is also the follow-up. So, okay, so we take our example, Monday evening, patron tripped on the stairs and scraped their elbow. This actually did happen. So I go investigate. Okay, there's no carpet tiles. Okay, that's great. So when I talked to the patron, they said, you know what? It's really hard to see going down the stairs because they're dark tiles. And so there was no contrast between the steps. You know what? We can do something about that. So that was a follow-up, and we, you know, put a lighter colored, what do you call it, nose piece or whatever on the steps. Okay, that's great. And that was all from an incident report. Now, if you think about if it happened and, you know, okay, well, I gave the person a bad day and away they go, we wouldn't have that follow-up necessarily. So that's why, personally, I really like it. The other reason is it's kind of a record. We've got one going on right now. There's a patron who gives us a hard time. And it's very interesting because there's never that overt, you know, swearing at you or, you know, trying to take a punch. It's always this insidious, you're not doing your job right, or you're incompetent, you know, it's just like, you're rude. But because it happens over and over again, and we get staff to document on these incident reports, then we can go back to this person when they say, I did no such thing. Well, actually, on May 17th, May 18th, May 19th, these incidents happened. Great. Yeah, so the other thing is, was something missed or do we need to refine something? We have lots and lots of procedures, we have safe work practices, all this kind of thing, and what we do when we refine something is we're looking for those mistakes. So that's part of the investigation and it's part of the follow-up. So an incident happened in March. It was in the evening, so no managers on duty. We didn't even think twice about it, but because we have the system in place and we can document, we made an improvement. So I forget what evenings, an evening, and we have casuals, so call-in staff. So they came onto the bookmobile, the big, huge white bookmobile, and they don't usually work on the bookmobile, so they were closing down, and they were getting ready to leave, and walking through the middle aisle, and bam, we have this overhang that goes from where the books are to the cab. And so she hit her head like, quite hard. And of course, you know, you're embarrassed, and you're just like, oh, ha, 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 that's really funny. But because, hey, you injured yourself, you've got to do an incident report. We did an incident report, and then we looked on the bookmobile. And you know what? You know, we had a lot of options, but as a team, we said, okay, you know what? This is a common occurrence. And besides the funny factor, what can we do to make this safer? Well, we could, you know, have people wear hard hats on the bookmobile, ha, ha, ha. But really it was, the creative solution was, you know what, on that bulkhead, just put a pool noodle so that if you do hit it, you know, you're okay. So that's kind of an illustration about how to refine something. There is also something totally new that we have to deal with. So if we have processes and procedures and everybody's doing them, that's great. But what happens when you're dealing with the public and man, they always come up with something to surprise you. So then, okay, well this happened, now what do we do? And so we have a bunch of safe work practices. So we didn't have, 2 years ago, a safe work practice for handling sharps or containers. And that happens, you know, you go into one of our, where I work in children's, and there's a needle on the floor in the bathroom. Holy crap, what do we do? Okay, so coming up with these safe work practices becomes part of the incident and the investigation. So, okay, I see this needle on the floor in the background, okay, my safe work practice, okay, get the gloves, get the sharp container, and our little kit. So we have tongs, and we do the whole sharps thing. And then we do up an incident report. And the incident report tracks those needle finds. So, you know, every month we say, okay, you know what, in the month of April, we found 40 needles, and here were the locations. Okay, great. And then, you know, March, we found fewer or more, whatever, we can keep track of that. The other part of that, so we have the safe work practice, is do the people involved in the incident actually know the safe work practice? It's like, oh yeah, well, you know, I just picked up the needle and put it in my sharps container, and that was great. Whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, and well, did you know, what happens if you got poked? Oh, I didn't think of that. Or what do you do with how do you take off your rubber gloves, your latex gloves, when, you know, you finish disposing of the needle? And then we have that chance for that conversation. So that's what I like about this form as well. And yeah, so the last one as accountability, like I said, these are documented and then sent into the city. And so they have this whole department, the IRM, Integrated Risk, IRM and ERC people. And they handle these things. And what's wonderful about them is they are trying to help you. And so prior to coming here, I was actually at an IRM meeting. And what we do is every 2 months, we go through these incidents. Okay, what happened? Well, so-and-so bonked her head in the bookmobile. Oh, well, how did you deal with it? Well, you know, we looked at things and we put a pool noodle on the bulkhead. Oh, very good. And then, okay, what about our needle finds? Well, you know, it's been down because the clean sweep people have actually been picking up our needles as well, so we're not finding as many in our grounds. Okay, well, that's interesting to know. And then the other thing is so that person that I told you that's always giving us a hard time, well, that it's good to reinforce that, you know what, you don't have to put up with this, and you stop the transaction right there. And then, so that was our line, and that's what we did. But then Darren, who works for the city, he said, you know what, that's great, but here's something you didn't think about. When you stop the transaction, don't turn your back on them and leave. Oh, well, that's good. So it's a chance to talk about things, make improvements, and reinforce good behaviors. And that's my quick and dirty speech on accountability. And if you have questions or answers, of course, we'll field them, and I'll give the mic back to Andrew.
Great, thank you very much. So we'll just open it up to the floor to see if there's any questions at this point. Otherwise, again, all our seminars are posted online, lethbridge.ca/downtown for viewing. You can also check out the Chamber of Commerce or the Downtown BRZ social media. And our next seminar will be on June 18th, where we'll be doing some needle debris collection training, and we'll hopefully have some materials, safe deposit box, tongs and gloves for businesses to actually have on hand, so that businesses are able to handle those issues on their own without tying up other resources when they feel comfortable to do so. So again, June 18th is our next seminar, but at this point, are there any questions for any of our presenters?